Well, hello there, everyone. Happy Sunday, wherever it is, whenever it is you are. I don't know why I have my headphones on. I don't actually need them yet. Hey, everyone, how are you doing? It is Kristi, and we are going out live on a Sunday, as we normally do. This is our time to be all nerdy together, do our nerdy thing. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're keeping safe and healthy and happy. I'm going to move my mic here. Noise and COVID-free. I've changed the title of this because we're going to look at problems with racism in white people, and also want to thank one of the people in the chat there, Gertjan. I want to say brought an article to my attention that I thought was, well, I'm always looking for content for the Sunday show. We're gonna have a look at that, and also some other things going on in the world of racism and white people in America. I'm sorry, this is kind of American-centric and America-specific. I think I can, leave a little bit more. I don't know, is that lighting okay? Is that too harsh, you guys think? Oh, right, yes, I'll talk about that, Nil Magnifico. Kevin did a really good job the other night with his debate talk with Infrared. Yeah, I have to say, having watched a few things with Infrared with Kevin, and then also, doing a little bit of research on my own, I was shocked beyond belief that Infrared managed to have a conversation without screaming at someone. Legit, I'd never, of all the clips I'd seen, never actually seen him have a conversation, it sounded like a human being that wasn't ranting before. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to... Is that too much? Yeah, is that good at lighting? Is that alright? Yeah, I think that's okay. Let me know in the comments if that's too harsh. It's super harsh on where I have to look to see y'all, so maybe I need to move the light a little bit over there, but... Anyway, it was a reasonable tone. I want to say it's a reasonable conversation. It was a reasonable tone in the conversation, so that was nice. But one thing that bothered me entirely that I didn't know at all is this idea, or a historical fact, that Stalin was hooking up with a 13-year-old. I'm sorry, there are a lot of facts of history that just passed me by. That was one of them. That I did not know. And the most disgusting, gross, physically nauseating thing that Infrared did in the time that I watched it, because maybe more things happened later, was to try to say, oh, well, the age of consent in Russia at that time was 14, so 13 was pretty close. And tried the horrible, well, in those days they thought it was okay. I'm sorry, 13 is never okay. It's never. People been knowing for a long time that getting a 13-year-old pregnant is, it's a bit harsh. Okay, I'll tone it down a little bit, the lightness. People have been known for a long time that if you get a 13-year-old girl pregnant, you are putting her life in danger. She's physically not developed to handle a birth. And the idea that somehow, because men who had power and wanted to sexually exploit little girls decided that 14 was old enough to risk their lives is vile. I mean, you can look back and at the time, for instance, Margaret Beaufort, at the time of the Middle Ages, when she had her only son, Henry Tudor, she was impregnated at 12 and gave birth at 13. And people knew that was messed up. So don't tell me somehow in the 1940s people knew that sexually exploiting girls was somehow, if you make it legal, if you just make a law saying it's okay, it's fine. I mean, I can't, how can you claim to have a moral compass about the goodness of human beings, about wanting the best for people and wanting a better society, and then you go and defend someone who's clearly a sexual predator? Sorry. I can't believe you actually have the interests of the common good or the people at front and center if you can't criticize a dead man for crimes he committed. That's just BS. So this is what happens when you set me off. I wasn't planning on talking about this, and now I've got a whole bunch of time spent on this, but hopefully you guys found it entertaining. Yeah, and I got a new coffee thing too to help me when I'm here doing my thing. Alright. I'm still mucking about with my lights a little bit. Sorry, y'all. Alright, what are we going to look at today? Well, first I want to say hi to people in the chat. Who I got here? Flint? Lonely Wolf, good to see you. It feels like it's been a while. A to the K. David. Landon is here. Trans Gamer Girl. Gertien, as I mentioned before, City Life, Rumor with Legs. I don't know if I've seen you before. Welcome to the show. Neil is in his Rory Cats and DN fan. 92. Whoop, 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 whoop. Colin. Hi, how you doing over there, Colin? I think that's everyone. Salvation, Katsumi, and that's Terrace Bro. Okay, so ambivalent about tonight's topic. Yeah, fair enough. So let me start. Yeah, I had yeah, let's just get going. Let's just jump right into this, as they'd say in various YouTube videos. That's the thing. All right, so you can see here on my screen that Gertien linked this article, and okay, hold on. My now that I'm in the light, I see how my glasses are like dusty and sad and stuff. So I have to like multitask here. Also, I ordered in new glasses this week. But because my astigmatism is so mad, crazy, like heavy, bad, and because I need the super thin lenses in order to fit into glasses, otherwise I'm gonna have like Coke bottle glasses, which wouldn't be nice if those came back into fashion because it'd be way cheaper for me to buy glasses. Anyway, yeah, so it's gonna take like 10 days, unfortunately, up to 10 work days. I think maybe not so long, but who knows, to get my new glasses. So look for by the end of March, middle of March, I'm gonna have a new look. All right, so Gertien wrote to me saying, "Dear Kristi, could you give your take on this, because I'm really on the fence about this one, mainly because the author is a controversial figure." So your name is Bob Nil? Not Bob Nil, but your name is Bob. Nil, comma, your name is Bob. Yes. Oh, Infrared suspended on Twitch? I mean, I'm not surprised. He does shout a lot at people. And I don't really know all the rules of Twitch, because Twitch is like a whole investment of time and energy and stuff. Yeah, I got my curls. I got all distracted. Yeah, I got proper curlers in. And so I'm starting to actually like put my hair in rollers in. So, yes. Okay, this is from Dayab Abu Jaha. Let's just take a quick look at their Twitter. Author, opinion maker. I like that. I make opinions. Like, you have opinions. You have opinions. Like, who's an opinion maker? That's kind of an arrogant title to give yourself. Former state enemy number 1. Okay. Former firebrand. Okay. Now just observing and thinking. And a little bit like white-splaining to black people and people of color how to talk, as we'll see. It takes seasoned warriors to build a lasting peace from Brussels. Now, I think I'm gonna okay. This ain't gonna be popular, but I think people who are in Europe need to demonstrate they've done the work to. If they're gonna criticize Americans and American activists and the American political like discourse, then y'all need to demonstrate you understand where the problems really come from before you make an opinion that you put out in the world, because I'm going to show you how not doing that work undermines his argument. Shouting is 50%. That's why I'm not on Twitch. 50% of everything on Twitch is shouting. That's why I don't do it. I'm too tired to shout. I'm too tired to be angry all the time, so I tend to be angry in short bursts. I came here for the so one. What? 1+1. Yay, new glasses. Yeah, I can't wait for my glasses. All right, so here is this. We're gonna try to get through it pretty quickly. I'm gonna, and it's from last year, so it's a little bit dated, but still it has problems that are eternal. All right, let me go ahead and give a read of this. The events unfolding in the United States of America and the growing momentum for the Black Lives Matter movement are a welcome development for people such as myself who were on the barricades fighting racism for decades in Europe. However, the anti-racist struggle should remain a struggle for equality and human rights and not be transformed into an elitist dogmatic discourse on why one identity is good and the other one is bad. I'm sure that the people in Ferguson and other places around the U.S. who are trying to, have been out there working on Black Lives Matter stuff, working in their communities, trying to put together, advance the BLM agenda of like body cams for cops and independent citizen overview of police shootings, demilitarization of the police, really appreciate you sitting here in Europe and calling their discourse elitist. Right. Behold the minority identity politics warrior, he writes. It is time to shut up and listen, you would hear them say. At other times, they, the mysterious they, will ask you to, quote, use your privilege, unquote, and, quote, speak up, unquote. So I guess the way he's trying to do here, what he's trying to do here is to say that if you speak to white people in a way that isn't friendly, or like he's language policing, he's tone policing. Right? He's mocking them by attributing words to them without actually like giving the context for the situation or whatever else, and also applying to like a mysterious they. They here, I guess, being black people and white people who want to be allies. Right? If you say something they don't approve of, they will tell you to educate yourself. Wow, free speech. You say something that is uninformed and people give you a reaction. The horror! Oh, white people. Oh, poor white people. Or even propose to educate you. Yeah, because a lot of people are steeped in racism to the point where they're swimming in it. They don't even see it as racism. So, quote, stop being toxic. Stop being fragile. Stop these crocodile tears of innocence. Sound familiar? No. You know why? Because I don't say stuff like that on I don't say toxic things. I don't try to protect white supremacist power structures because my ego feels a little bit bruised when you criticize Thomas Jefferson. No. And this is the problem. Like, he actually is like demonstrating the problem of whiteness in this article, not showing the problems of critiquing. If you are white, you have an approach. If you are white and you have another approach to this fight against racism than what a person of color is saying, you will very likely hear this. Okay, can I just talk, like, let's just step back. Here is what my general problem is with this guy and his article. And it's not just him, he is a symptom of a certain kind of man, a certain kind of cis white man on the left. And these are the guys, and some of them are like this guy, like old school, been doing it for a while. They were maybe like in unions and stuff and like trying to overthrow capitalism and racism sort of sprinkled in, right? And the thing is that some of these leftist men of all ages in this category, if it doesn't apply to you, don't feel offended. That's how this works. If you're a white leftist guy and you don't do this, then I ain't talking about you, right? So what they do is they are in these movements. They espouse basic progressive ideas or basic humanism from the podium. Like, from the mic, from the positions of power and status, from the positions of being opinion makers on the left, right? And they talk about the importance of inclusion and the importance of representation, the importance of diversity, and yet they want to keep the mic. They think that, instead of making way for other people to talk and giving other people's opinions and perspectives, they want to stay on the stage and, like, moderate the debates, and, like, still control stuff. And that is part of the problem. Like, white guys who don't know when to get off the stage and make room for other people, realizing that their life experiences or their perspectives on things aren't the only one, they're not universal, and they can't represent everybody's issues, when we have people who can represent themselves in their communities. And so this whole thing of, like, if you're white and you're trying to white-splain to people how we should do racism, anti-racism activism, yeah. Like, what are you doing? What do you know about, like, honestly, unless you are, you've been out there working on these issues in the churches, on the front lines. I look at someone who is like Tim Wise, who I think is a good role model for white people who want to be anti-racist. The first thing he did was shut up and listen to black people. And he opened his eyes to their experiences. And rather than lecturing black people on how to do racism, he lectured white people on recognizing their own racism. So, yeah, if you're a white person, you're going to try to tell people of color how to do their anti-racist activism, maybe realize you are actually drawing on the privilege that they are critiquing, instead of getting all your feels in a hurt way. If you are really about the anti-racism, then as a white person, show up and shut up and listen up and be an ally first. Is your job number one. And listening to black people or people of color on their issues and not trying to give them advice on how to do their stuff, Mr. White Man's Burden. So, and I think this guy might be Lebanese, but I'm not entirely sure his background, but I'm just kind of talking about the white guy mentality. In this case, the white leftist progressive who talks a good game but actually doesn't want to give up any power, doesn't want to open up, get out of his seat and offer it to somebody else who hasn't had a seat before. All right. If you are a man and you tried to make a point on gender equality, you were very likely to hear this too. No, only if you are doing gender equality, that isn't gender equality. Again, if you are mansplaining to trans people and women and other non-binary people from some cis-normative perspective about how to make things more palatable to you, well, then you're not really doing gender equality, are you? Sometimes your best activism is to listen, not talk. If you are heterosexual and you have a point to make in the fight against homophobia that doesn't please a gay activist, some version of this narrative may come your way. Yeah, it's called, straight-splaining, white-splaining, mansplaining. So maybe question the assumptions and privilege of the people who are out here lecturing oppressed people on how to do their stuff. Stop expecting them to be grateful to you and ask, how are you being an ally? The problem we are facing is that the debate on equality is transformed into a debate on identity. But in America, where BLM is most active, identity is politics. Identity is a source of inequality. So if you don't confront whiteness and white power structures and the white dominance of power and their attempts to manipulate structures of power to maintain it, then you can't get to equality. You can't get to equality if you don't name the problem. And he is basically saying here that white people are too fragile to not be privileged. An identity that is not seen anymore as an expression of cultural realities, linguistic diversity or religious doctrine. Identity from a minority perspective is nowadays focalized around two central characteristics, color and gender. Okay, this is where the ignorance on the American history comes in, but let me finish this section. Don't get me wrong, I'm aware of the importance of color and gender in the debate on equality. Oh, thank you, white man. Again, I don't know if he's white, but seriously, you can't go, oh, I know these things are important, but now let me tell you why they're not important. Or let me tell you why they're not presented the right way. And I'm not going to reproduce the classical leftist analysis claiming that inequality results from class differences and nothing else. That analysis is reductionist. Yeah, it's BS. And it's never worked. You know why it's never fixed any racism or sexism problems? Because it don't work. It's not the thing that's, you can't fix racism by throwing money at people. You can't fix sexism by just throwing money at people in the form of redistributed resources, right? People have identity structures that actually supersede their economic interests. Poor white people should not be voting for the Republicans who are giving tax cuts, but they override that economic interest vote with a class or with an identity vote about their Protestantness or their whiteness or what their version of Americanness is. Nevertheless, we are facing a big problem with the rising minority identity politics paradigm. Who is? Not people in that group. So who is? Who's the we in this situation? And the intellectual intimidation tactics. Oh my gosh, having a conversation on Twitter. You want to see intimidation tactics? Try to be a person of color in the United States dealing with police. Again, this. And adherents are using in this debate. This is risking to jeopardize the struggle for equality altogether. In this article, I want to formulate some critical notes towards that paradigm, taking the anti-racist struggle as a reference. All right, let's hear you whitesplain. The term POC is used within the minority identity politics paradigm to define who we all are, as opposed to being white. It is the racist American slavers and French colonialists who coined the term in the 18th century. It's not just a term, it's a structure. This is not a decolonial term, it is a colonial term. It flattens the rich cultural and religious identities of the people. What it labels, to accept it is to accept being defined in the function of a presumed white other. Already by accepting to be referred to in this function of the other, one has established inferiority. No, that inferiority was established in the system already. What you're saying is if we just don't use these words, we're going to liberate ourselves from the structures that actually they're based on. If we just don't say Voldemort, he won't appear. No, that's not how it works. The problem is whiteness was weaponized against people of color, and then not only in terms of society and speech, but in terms of laws and economics and politics and the criminal justice system and education. and on and on and on. The problem here isn't language. The problem here is the racism. I am not a person of color, he says. And I am not saying this to reproduce the cliche of I am only a human. I am not only a human. My ethnic identity is a reality, and it means something. It is an active identity and a function of myself, and not a passive one and a function of another. Yeah, except for you it is, but to other people on the outside, it is. Like, you can talk about your reality, and if you're not a person of color, you have that privilege of not being defined by being an other than white. But people who aren't white don't. I choose to speak about ethnicity and not about color or race. That's not exactly like a brave, you're basically using euphemisms. So, but it also covers elements related to, sorry. Ethnicity covers racialized features as in color and other visible physical differences, but it also covers elements related to culture, religion, nationality, and language. It cannot be reduced to a physical feature, pigmentation, or element used by racist establishment to label me. It is above all my language, my culture, my fact. Me. Again, when you are like not living in an oppressive system, Mr. I am not a person of color. I don't know, again. Maybe you're, like I said, he's Lebanese or whatever else. He's doesn't gonna identify as a person of color. But for people who do live in America, and again, you're in Brussels. I'm not saying Brussels is perfect or you've never experienced any kind of discrimination. I'm just saying, don't be lecturing people in another country when you don't know their experience. And while I do live in a reality in which I do belong to an ethnic minority, and because of that reality I'm discriminated against ethnically, I do not believe this to be absolute. Well, good for you. But, like, that's your opinion, man. Don't be lecturing other people based on your experience when you've got how many thousands of, how many Twitter followers and all kinds of privilege? Like, yeah, like 15,000 followers, all that kind of stuff. So, certainly not in the sense that it is related to the cultural essence of the parties involved. In Lebanon, for instance, I belong to an ethnic minority, and I'm not discriminated against. And so there, I'm not discriminated against. So to better understand the reality of discrimination, I do not look within my ethnicity or that of an other. Instead, I study the dynamics of majority-minority, regardless of ethnicity. Well, okay, but you know but the thing is, the failure of this intellectual procedure here, process, is that the ethnic divisions in situation is very different in Lebanon. Like, you didn't have people enslaved and until the mid-1800s and had to fight a war over it and then perpetuated basically an apartheid system. Like, I'm not saying that what happened in Lebanon with the division of power between religious minorities is better, but you can't compare these two things and go, oh, both of these are about, racism in a way we can compare apples to apples. They're just different. Like, their commonalities and where people can find common cause are just different. And also, like, the systematic economic destruction of generations, right? Not the same. So don't try to compare your Lebanese experience. Like, stay with your Lebanese experience and talk about that. But you're going to try to take, like, racism out of America because of what happened in Lebanon ain't going to work. Minority identity politics adopted an essentialist and ahistorical approach to racism and discrimination. Wrong. This is just wrong. This is absolutely wrong. It is not about essentialism. Essentialism talks about something being an absolute core part, indistinguishable, intractable, or like irremovable. You can't remove it from the thing itself, right? And so when we talk about people, like when people talk about people of color from an anti-racist perspective, we're not saying that something inherently black or essentially black. And if you listen to black people, there's a lot of discussions about light color versus dark color, bigotry, and like biases, not bigotry, but biases within the black community, because so much of like whiteness has been indoctrinated that those unfair judgments based on skin color like go in even within like communities of color, because that psychology has been so reinforced by the dominant majority culture. And so, no, there isn't an inherent blackness. People were debating Kamala Harris, like, oh, her dad is from Jamaica, is she really black? And other people like, don't even like come down on her on this. This is BS kind of stuff. Is she black enough? So this, like, sorry, it's garbage. is absolutely garbage line here. It hijacked the label whiteness from its academic and anthropological context and turned it into a racial label. No, white people did this. No, 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 no. See, you're blaming people of color for just pointing out what white people have been doing for centuries. It's the white people who made the essentialist claims that whiteness was superior and anything that wasn't white wasn't. So get it right. Like, just get it right. Get your facts right. Don't blame the victims who are calling out the problem for the problem created by white people. This is why this article, like, really... Whiteness is now used to claim that racism, violence, and exploitation are quintessentially to whites and their culture. 'Cause it is! It is! It is! This is it! Like, it was white people who constructed these power structures in order to keep power over black people. I'm listening to the biography of Alexander Hamilton. They're talking about Nevos, or the island that he grew up on. And at the time when the French and the Spanish and the English and the Portuguese were all like fighting and scrapping in Europe and like, you know, whatever, on the island of Nevos and other islands in the Caribbean where, you know, slaves outnumbered white people 4-1, they had laws about what white people could do and not do. So it was Europeans back in the 1600s who created this notion of whiteness, even when they're fighting back in Europe, in order to have an us versus them mentality, because all of the white people benefited from having a subjugated slave population, right? So again, don't be blaming people of color for calling out what white people have been doing for what it is. All right. By doing it, it establishes the identity of white man as problematic. Well, if you want to talk about the generic, if you want to talk about the generic white man, the way that Fox News talks about problems in the black community and the destruction of the black family, let's talk about, you know, if we're going to talk about policing language, then all people of color are doing an anti-racist activist. When we talk about how white people, I don't know about white man, but you know, it's like the typical, like the archetype of white supremacy is Mitch McConnell. It's Kevin McCarthy. It's Donald Trump. And are these people problematic? Absolutely. So, you know, that identity associated. Now, again, if it doesn't apply to you, and then they aren't talking to you, just don't be mad. It's that easy. And since the system of oppression is identity-based, liberation must be an identity as well. Said who? I'm sorry, there's a lot of BS going on in here. It is the identity of the indigenous people and the POC that is righteous, liberating, and hence superior. Said nobody but you, whiny leftists. Honestly, this is just like, of like privileged leftists who are used to being up on stage speaking for other people and not wanting other people to have a chance to actually get the mic and say what they think. Is so concerned about policing people on the left as opposed to actually dealing with anti-racism. Okay. This vilification of the majority's identity while romancing that of the minority. Again, citation needed. How are you a leftist? Honestly, like, how are you anti-racist in all of this? I don't see any anti-racism. I see basically targeted mockery and shaming and tone policing and language policing and protection of the discriminating structures and the population that benefits from them. Not just white identity, but also male and heterosexual identities are often defined within the minority identity politics paradigm as being essentially oppressive and malign. While colored, female and homosexual identities are presented as essentially oppressed and benign. Yet no citations needed. Who publishes this crap? Honestly. This is unsourced, like a bunch of logical fallacies. This is like, how could you respect this person on this take? I mean, maybe they've got some better takes on economic stuff where they have more. This stuff, though, is just whiny white, like, privilege rhetoric. And you don't have to be white to basically stand the white privilege power structures. And that's what he's doing. By adopting this approach instead of fighting structures, yeah, you're just gonna, like, take on racism by not actually dealing with people's racism. These minority identity activists are fighting people. And instead of calling for solidarity, they are calling out what they consider racial and gender privilege. Yeah, imagine that. like actually calling out the problems so people can recognize them. How threatening. All right, I'm gonna. So I mean, I can go on, but let's just get on to his last points because I don't want to spend my whole hour on this, and we've been going almost a half hour already. All right, here we go. Speaking again for people. We fight racism not because we are its victims. We fight it because we are oppressed to it. Dude, you are doing the racisms right here by defending the white power structure. Therefore, we expect those who are not its victims to join this fight with us on equal basis, because this must not be a tribal thing. Yeah, it sounds good in practice, but what it really means is the overrepresentation of people who already have privilege within groups, movements that are designed to actually undo the dominant paradigm. Sure, we as its victims have more insights into how we experience it, and hence we could better testify on our victimhood. Well, again, if you're saying that, then what you should also be saying is that white people need to recognize this. There's no point. Sorry, I need a pillow on my back. There's no point in saying, yeah, our experiences are valid, and we know what we're talking about more than white people, and then also criticize people for saying, y'all need to shut up because you don't know what you're talking about, or privileging white activists because, their feelings will be hurt otherwise. Blah, blah, blah. The answer to the far right is a broad mobilization based on solidarity and equality against racism, sexism, colonialism, and all other forms of inequality. In this mobilization in Europe, white heterosexual men are not only welcome, they are necessary. Oh, but the white men's. Like, can you just, stop standing this and actually look at the transforming of the actual activist groups away from a white patriarchy? And maybe instead of saying we need to couch everything in a language that protects the feelings of white heterosexual men, you could give a little pep talk about how white heterosexual men need to toughen up a little bit and stop trying to associate their egos and their feelings with dead white racists who owe them nothing and they have no connection with, and instead put that allegiance and that connection onto people of color who are suffering right now. That's what this is about. The statue stuff is about protecting white people's fragile egos. It's not about preserving our history. And when you pick old statues over living people, you show your values. And when you say we need to make sure that our critiques of racism, first and foremost, think about how white people are going to feel. When we do our critiques of cis heteronormativity or heteronormativity, we have to always take into consideration the feelings of straight people. What you're doing is replicating those power dynamics. You're not actually confronting them. You're basically giving white people the deference. You're giving straight people the deference. You're giving men the deference as a starting point in your movement to actually get people to be equal. You see what I'm pointing out here? This is a very problematic take. It is more concerned about getting white people with crappy attitudes and hypersensitive feelings and still putting that above the actual work of activism. Yeah, BLM was doing well until it got hijacked by white leftists and black people got blamed for stuff they didn't approve of. Yeah. There was a lot of, someone was saying they were going to a BLM march and a bunch of white people came over and they were trying to make people vegans. This is not your time, vegans. You're like, oh, look, there's going to be a bunch of people and I'm on the left. And no, you are taking away time and attention from people dying by police violence. Don't do counter activism and take attention away from the issue. Don't go there and do, property damage, and black bloc and all that kind of, destruction of stuff that is going to be associated with the BLM movement. Because we're going to see, other things I wanted to talk about, is that white conservatives want to link BLM not with the reform of police violence, but to violence. And white leftists who go and do property destruction at BLM protests are basically helping conservatives and fascists. So they're not your allies. People are white people who show up to these protests and with bricks or wanting to break stuff or kick in windows. You are not an ally. You're a fascist ally. So knock it off and let black people lead. You know. All right. So that was that. Anyone in the chat got? I think you guys were like having a whole conversation while I was talking about turf academics or something. So I don't even think you guys were paying attention to me, but I think it was also the false representation of BLM rated to protest responsible for burning sound cities, which were untrue. Absolutely. And I know that there's a little bit of like, you don't want to have your message dictated by your political enemies. On the other hand, you don't want to just hand them free counter, free propaganda to use against you. It's unfortunate that part of the problem of getting like white people on side is having to, like here he's taking to the extreme, like don't hold white people accountable for the white structures that they benefit from and don't hurt their feelings. On the other hand, you don't want to like unnecessarily do things like if knocking in the windows of a Target actually got you something, then you could consider it like as part of your protest civil disobedience if you wanted to go to prison, right? But if it's all it's going to do is turn public opinion against you, then you have to really consider like, why are these people in your movement and are they helping? All right, so I think I had a couple other things going on here. Trans Gamer Girl has a post in the thing if people want to look at that. I wanted to keep on this one. Oh gosh, yeah. All right. So staying on this theme of problematic white people and discourses. That's what I'm going to talk for like another 20 minutes on that, and then we're going to go. Because I'm going to try to keep it to an hour. And I might have a special thing for you next week on the Sunday show. If so, I will announce it on the happy hour this week. So keep an eye out for that. All right. Orlando. Representative Paul Gosar said Saturday night he opposed white racism hours after speaking at a far-right conference, whose organizer spoke approvingly of the Capitol insurrection while delivering a white nationalist speech. Just saying words doesn't matter when your actions speak louder. And just saying the words, I renounce or denounce white racism after you've gone to a conference and shown up and given your imprimatur, is that how you say that word? To a group by having an elected member of Congress there, it's not enough. Don't just denounce white racism, denounce that group. Denounce all the people you spoke to. Denounce anyone who would basically defend the insurrection at the Capitol. Why don't you try that if you want to be a little bit brave? Quote, I want to tell you, I denounce white racism, unquote, Gosar said during a panel at CPAC. That's not appropriate. White racism, it's so inappropriate. It's like farting, in a movie theater. It's very inappropriate. No, it is evil. It is a threat to our domestic tranquility. It is a vulnerability. Racism and white supremacy is a foreign policy, is a risk to our national security, because outside actors could use racial divisions to divide Americans and therefore like make us weaker on the international stage. Right? So it's not appropriate. It's a threat domestically and internationally to our security. He said later he was referring to Friday night's America First Political Action Conference organized by 22-year-old online commentator Nick Funes. Nick Fuentes, who rallied rioters outside the Capitol on January 6th. Gosar was the only elected official to attend the Friday event, speaking after former congressman and known white supremacist Steve King, who lost a primary after party leaders abandoned him over a string of white nationalist remarks. Look at this. A racist white man, another Nick Fuentes, organizing white supremacist standing party. But hey, don't call out the white people. Don't call out this patriarchy. Don't offend heterosexuals who have a heteronormative viewpoint that are disparaging of gay people and trans people. We wouldn't want to hurt their feelings. you know? It's not like other people are dying. Whiteness, who has been banned from some social media channels after making racist and anti-Semitic comments, accused mainstream pro-Trump Republicans of betraying the former president's agenda and said America needs to protect its white demographic core. He ridiculed Kosar's congressional colleagues and mocked the partial paralysis of Representative Madison. What? I don't even know. Partial paralysis. What is going on there? I don't know anything about this. I don't know what any of this is. Okay, I'll look it up later. You guys are, I mean, it's not that much of an issue to be looking up now. Okay. In a brief interview after speaking at the CPAC panel Saturday, Gosar continued to distance himself from Fuentes' remarks, which he said he had stayed in the room to watch. Quote, "There's no room for violence," unquote, Gosar said when asked about the Capitol riots. You know, maybe your people should vet your calendar events before you go to these things. Maybe you should see clips of what these people are like before you associate with them. Or are you just trying to play both sides of things? Gosar's Friday night speech focused on social media censorship and immigration. Quote, "I suggest that senators and members of Congress that fail to put America first should be held accountable at the ballot box." Yeah, anyone who puts white supremacy above American values should be voted out of office. So all Republicans, basically. American values are liberty and justice for all, not exploitation and racism. It's practical history has been that, but its aspirational history is to have America first in terms of like American rights first and American liberty, not your religious and sexist biases. This is the era of America first, not some reincarnation of neocon control. America first seems to be whatever benefits the Trump family financially, so it's hardly a foreign policy perspective. Fuentes, appearing after Gosar, accused Black Lives Matter activists of wanting to create a new racial case system in this country with whites at the bottom. Interesting because what this implies is that there's an existing racial case system in America with whites at the top. Otherwise, we wouldn't need a new one, would we, Nick? And here's the thing is, if there isn't a problem with racism now, why would you be so intimidated about inversing the roles here? I mean, is it the case that maybe white people's history against people of color has been so horrific and genocidal and violations of human rights and crimes against humanity that you wouldn't want the whole treat others as they have treated you? It seems to me that that's what you're afraid of. That if there is a new racial order created that looks like what white people did to people of color, what you're assuming the people of color like design structure would do to white people, you fear it because you know how bad people have had it. This is an insight more into how bad things are now than his legit fears of a new racial case system. Quote, "If America ceases to retain that English cultural framework and the influence of European civilization, if it loses its white demographic core, and if it loses its faith in Jesus Christ, then this is not America anymore." That is not America. Like, that is, for me, that is the antithesis. A English-only speaking, English cultural framework, skin color-focused Christianity has nothing to do with what the founding fathers set up. I mean, not directly. If you want to say like everybody there was a white man, and they had European influences, yes. But we didn't mention anything about Englishness in our Constitution. Yes, the whiteness thing was in there because slavery and racism is endemic. It goes to the core of racism is at the core of America's history. But they didn't have religious requirements for office. They didn't have religious tests. They didn't require everyone to speak English, right? These are things that were invented by the patriarchy and replaced. They try to replace what America could be with this. Oh, when we talk about liberty and justice for all, we only really mean white men. We'll say it's for all, but if you actually try to do anything to like take that away from white men, then you're not an American. Fuentes was preceded on stage by a video with footage of the Capitol insurrection, which he defended. Isn't he under criminal investigation for this? Didn't he like get taken in by the FBI? Was he? Well, he was the one with Baked Alaska in Nancy Pelosi's office, right? Muppet. He defended while he added he did not personally enter the building. What? I'm pretty sure he entered the building. I'm pretty sure Nick Fuentes, yeah, that guy, right? Capitol insurrection. Nancy, I'm pretty sure he was in the Nancy Pelosi's. Yeah, Baked Alaska D Live, which we're not going to watch, but oh, what the hell is going on here? All right, let's not go to that page. When you get to a Russian link, I was like, what? All right, Nick Fuentes. Let's see. Baked Alaska. Yeah. All right, can't go there. Can't go there. I think this is him. Like people have said, this is him. Known white supremacist Tim Gionette and Nick Fuentes also attended the infamous rally. Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes and neo-Nazi loser Baked Alaska both live-streamed from Nancy Pelosi's office after storming. Oh, I'm shocked. Shocked that Nick Fuentes would lie to our faces. Shocked that he would lie and tell untruths and try to manipulate us with misinformation. Never. Say it ain't so, Nick. Adding that he did not personally enter the building, lie. I saw hundreds of thousands of patriots. Really? Beating up the cops and breaking windows? Those are patriots to you? Surrounding the US Capitol building, and I saw the police retreating. Apparently that's good news for him. He hates the police. And we heard that the politicians voting on the fraudulent election had to scurry to their underground tunnels away from the Capitol. Fuentes said, I said to myself, this is awesome. So you're basically happy about terrorism. Really? Is there? And Fuentes said we need a bit more of that energy in the future. And then he added that he vowed violence and vandalism. Oh yeah, let's terrorize people so they have to evacuate with their security. Let's beat police down so we drive their lines back, and let's break into the Capitol, smash windows, and destroy stuff. But also, I denounce violence and vandalism. Like, you can't have it both ways, Nick. You can't have it both ways. Your movement is inherently based on violence. BLM, 98% of their protests were peaceful, right? And yet you're going to try to say that black people are the violent ones and white people who do violence are the non-violent ones. You see how this works? White people can't do anything wrong. White people can't be criticized. White people can use all the levers of power and manipulate the system and be sent home when they do it on home, being, what do you call that? Like, yeah, they're being sent at home with bracelets, not sitting in jail. You know, not being exposed to actual prison time. So tell me again, like, how we really need to make sure our language protects the feelings of white people as opposed to calling things what they are and showing them a different way of talking about things and a different way of thinking about things through language. One where they're not privileged. One where their heroes are criticized. Because their heroes deserve criticism. 93% peaceful? Yeah, I'll take that. Let's see, percent BLM protests peaceful. %. Yes, thank you very much. I've got here 95%, 93%. Protesters or bystanders reported injury in 1.6. So I guess it kind of also depends on how you measure it, but still. Here's what we found based on the 7,305 events we collected. Overall levels of violence and property destruction were low. Police made arrests in 5% of the protest events. Used tear gas, 2.5%. Protesters or bystanders reported injured in 1.6%. In total, at least 3 BLM protesters and 1 other person were killed while protesting in Omaha, Austin, and Kenosha, Wisconsin. 1 anti-fascist protester killed a far-right group member during a confrontation in Portland. Law enforcement killed the alleged assailant days later. Police were reported injured in 1% of the protests. How many police were injured as a percentage in that Capitol insurrection? A law enforcement officer killed in California was allegedly shot by a supporter of the far-right Boogaloo movement, not an anti-racism protester. So only 3.7% of the protest involved property damage. So I guess it depends on, in short, our data suggests that 96.3% of the events involved no property damage or police injuries, and in 97.7% of the events, no injuries were reported amongst the participants. Depends on how you count, but in the high 90s. Or another way to say it is, well under, 10%, like somewhere between, there's like 5 and 7% of those events were violent, whereas all of the insurrection stuff I've seen was violent. Gosar did not mention the Friday night conference by name from the CPAC stage, but in a short interview afterwards, he said he was referring to Fuentes' remarks. Just call him out by his name, you chicken. Just say, these are the people I should have done a better job of vetting. My staff screwed up, I screwed up, and I will not be associating with these people again. All right. Asked whether he regretted attending the event, Gosar said, "You don't accomplish anything by isolating and refusing to speak to some audiences. It's always about the debate. That's how you grow." Yeah, you know what? Legitimizing white supremacy is not advancing the debate. Sometimes you can just listen to people without actually showing up on their stage and legitimizing them. You don't have to go and be platformed by them to get your shine of being an elected member of Congress who's willing to come and speak to their group and still, listen to their garbage and blow it out the water and ignore it. So that's weak. Yeah, and so we got 7 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead, if you guys have comments or questions or anything else in the chat, go ahead and type those out. I will have a look at those in the last few minutes of the show. We've got 6 minutes left, so let's see what people have here. And again, I'm not going to go into, I'll move this a little bit here. I'm not going to start a whole new, I'm not going to look at new videos or anything because we only have 6 minutes left. But just FYI, what is going on? Why is this my, I thought I did a new display thing, which should be a lot cooler, but this one looks kind of crap. Looks like my old display thing. And I really wanted the new one. Where's my themes? Yeah, that's right. I'm doing random display, sound, notification. Stuff on. I can't find it. Anyway, doesn't matter. Alright, so what do we got here? Only 5-seat majority in the House. I don't know what that means. The real question is, should be why white people are so threatened by the prospect of losing an oppressive organization that they embrace fascism openly while proclaiming their wokeness. Yeah. It's to be honest, I know from my personal experience, I had to be indoctrinated out of this sort of thinking because everything in the American education system, I mean, just go back and look at Schoolhouse Rock. It is unconsciously incredibly racist. And it reflects the racism, the people who are in power are always white. The majority of the people participating, I mean, and historically it is accurate, but there's no critique there. You're just meant to be spoon-fed. Here are the things you're meant to be proud of, and they're bound up with whiteness. And as a consequence, when whiteness is critiqued, white people, for some, we're trained, indoctrinated, unless we break the conditioning, to take that personally. Why should I care that we criticize George Washington? People who have good ideas still do bad things. And it says something more about you when you stand, like slavers, as opposed to admitting that that part was freaking evil, just evil. Nick Fuentes, it was wrong of me to Photoshop him into an interracial okay, my lonely wolf. I'm gonna stop there. And Tony's 13, it's projected that white males will be a minority voting bloc. Well, I mean, if you just, so what do you have, like right now, about 68 something % of the country is white, and then you divide that in half basically for distributions if you wanted to do a quick and easy and slightly an inaccurate binary of male and female, which I'm sorry, but on the consensus level, we don't have good data for the other stuff yet. So yeah, you're already down to like 37% or something. They're already a minority voting bloc if you want to look at them as a group, because if you take, but white women, unfortunately, we as a group tend to side with racist structures over liberation. That's not how state works. Wisconsin won't be minority for decades. It's also depending on where you are. Parts of the South will be majority, minority, whatever it is, way earlier than other parts. 70% in the U.S. is maybe white. 70% of the people will be in power will be white. Well, right now, the white people in power is like closer to 95%. If you look, it depends. Like, political power because of representative democracy means we have more more proper descriptive representation that actually looks like the population from when it's drawn. But you look at churches, and churches have a lot of power. You look at businesses, and you look at the legal profession, you look at the criminal justice profession, it is dominated by white men. And those are all nexus of power that really lack representation. Using a CPAC speaker as an example is shooting fish in a barrel. Yes, agreed. All right, let me scroll down a little bit. Jose released a new video. I don't know who that is. There was a study coming up around autumn. Don't know. These violence included violence of property destruction. Yeah, we looked at the data from the Harvard study, right? McCavity. I don't know what that is. You guys are, I don't know, what are you talking about in my chat? Oh, I've only got the top chat up. How about I get the live chat up? Will that make more sense now? See, an anti-fascist was killed by a fascist somehow is counted as part of a BLM protest instead of just terrorisms. Yeah, good point. And just because it happened at that event, why is it linked there? Counter protests had been proportional and more likely ended up with violence. I don't know what we're talking about here. Did I have a good birthday? I did. It was 70 degrees here on the Wednesday, about 21 degrees, like so maybe 70, 72. And I went out to a park because you can meet people outside in groups of like 2. So it was my girlfriend and her daughter, and went out and in the sun drank some really delicious salted caramel coffee. It was a latte or a macchiato, I can't quite remember, but it had salty taste and it had caramel taste and it had coffee taste, so it was lovely. And a waffle, like they tend to do, like waffles was just like cinnamon and sugar, so that was kind of like my birthday cake. And then in the evening, a different friend came over and brought over a bottle of Prosecco, and we drank half the bottle in my apartment. And then we went outside and watched the sun go down and just talked about stuff and drank the other half of the bottle, and waited a little while for her to sober up because she's a bigger drinker than me. And and then I played chess while I was drunk, and that was fun. So yeah, generally I had a really lovely birthday. Next year, next year I turn 50. And here's the problem with birthdays in Germany, and then I'm gonna go, I'll have a look quick. But in Germany, when it's your birthday, you put stuff on. Like in the States where I'm used to, other people will like organize, some person who cares about you or likes you or is assigned the job will, like organize a lunch to go out to or something. And people will bring their presents. Well, in Germany, you are the one who has to do the cooking or go to or organize the restaurant and then pay for the entire meal. And you're meant to do not meant to do, but it is quite common for people to do really big things around like their 40th birthday, their 50th birthday, their 60th birthday. My friend Zandra, who I just had, came over to celebrate mine for her 50th last year. It was pre-COVID. We had she must have had 30 people over at a restaurant and blew 500 or 600 euros just it's on spending money on our drinks and food for her birthday. She put on, like, she was the hostess, she was like walking around talking, doing all the work. And so I think what I want to do is just have, I'm going to start up like a little vacation fund or a little thing. I'm going to invite like maybe 5 or 6 people and go someplace. So my friend Nachi did it really well. We went to Center Parks in the Netherlands for a weekend. He rented out this like 3-bedroom unit, and there were, or 4-bedroom unit, I can't quite remember, and there was 1 couple, 2 couples, there may have been 3 couples and me and 1 other person, so maybe it was a 4-bedroom thing. And we just like hung out in the Center Parks, did some mini golf together. We had, the big night was a steak night. He brought someone who also loved to grill steaks, and he funded our weekend, and we celebrated his birthday. I think I want to do something more like that. I'm just babbling now, so when 2 or 3 are gathered in Kristi's names, you guys are fine. Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. Okay, happy birthday! Thank you for my birthday wishes. Oh, you're talking about the counter protest against BLM. Okay. Happy birthday! Thank you. Still like Blue Lives Matter. Okay. An awesome chill day. Jose is great. His new video is about Crossfire of Lawrence Southern, and Crossfire is a horrible racist. Okay, good to know. I don't know, Nil Magnifico. You're losing it. Yeah, you're losing it. All right. So for next week, again, I'm gonna try to put together. Hopefully, it'll all come together. If I can get people to or agree to it. What I want to do is kind of have a history nerd fest with Kevin and one of my patrons who told me an amazing story about a thing that I'm not going to give away until I know for sure that I can do it and bring it on. And I'm also trying, I'm going to try to each week do something more interactive, and at the start of the show I also want some stuff that I can clip for the channel, because spending all my time over the happy hour on Kevin's channel has been great for his content and his channel growth and his Twitch stream, but my channel is languishing. So I want to rework this a little bit and maybe get like 3 clips from maybe Tim Pool or Dave Rubin, or, you know, other people you guys can suggest, like maybe this Crossfire or someone else, and do 3 terrible takes and have you guys, we can do like a poll and you can vote for the worst take of the week. And then that can be like a little clipped thing that I can do, because some people just don't have an hour to spend, and if we can make it thematic. So, I mean, we'll see. I have good ideas, but then it requires work and I have a lot of other commitments. Okay, so next week, hopefully we'll do something fun and geeky. Well, we're always going to do something geeky, but hopefully it'll be fun and geeky with Kevin and another guest. And until next time, yeah, goodbye for me. And it did, yeah, just goodbye for me. I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. Go and watch the happy hour tomorrow on Kevin's channel, and I will see you back here next week. So be happy, healthy, and well. Stay all those things wherever it is, whenever it is you are. And if you want to watch some geeky D&D, you can head over to D&D with Kristi, my channel, for the latest episode in my Dragon Heist campaign, which will be continuing on tonight. All right, thank you all for coming by, and we'll see you all later. As she says, as she draws out the ending in order to find the right button on the YouTube tab. Got it. Okay. Catch y'all later. Bye.